Let's.
Oh,
Welcome to Cannabis Corner. All of your questions are answered. Mondays at 1, they're here for you. Joe the weed guy and Farmer. Welcome to Cannabis Corner. So let's start the show.
good afternoon. You're listening to Cannabis Corner on WNHHLP 103.5 FM, broadcasting live from downtown New Haven. We are streaming live on TuneIn Radio and NewHavenIndependent.org. We're also streaming live video on Facebook and YouTube. Just go to your Facebook page and look us up or hit see first to see and hear all the great programs we have here on WNHHLP. And just a reminder that Cannabis Corner is also streaming live on the Greenhaven Media Facebook page and ProCannabisMedia.com. Welcome, everyone. It is Monday, December the 8th. Welcome to Cannabis Corner. I am your host, Joe LaChance, Joe the Weed Guy. And I, of course, am joined here by the one and only Uncle Lou, Farmer Lou. How are you today?
Hey, how's it going? Good, sir. Always appreciate coming on with you, brother, and talking a little bit of talk every Monday for almost the last 7 years.
I
Uh,
know it's been a long, strange trip.
it's long. That's one of the favorite sayings for everybody. It's one of my favorite sayings, the long, strange trip. You
Yeah,
know,
man.
it's one of those quotes that will never get old. But I'm not. I may not be here for a long time, but I'm definitely here for a strange time, bro.
Yes, there's an old Chinese proverb that said, "May you live in interesting times."
That's right.
And I think we are doing that right now.
I
We're
think
def-
we are. I think we are, brother. I think we are. And if we're not, we're making it interesting. At least we make sure to be out there, see what's going on, see what the world changes. All of those pretty cool things. And I always want to thank you. I appreciate you for our 2 or 3 times a week walk. So if you're not out there, tell
It
our
was
listeners
cold
if you're not
today,
out there,
baby.
it was chilly. It was chilly. If you go out and get a walk. Maybe I'm not trying to say, I'm not, no legal advice, but little civil disobedience of taking a hike and smoking a joint is pretty much in the weather right these days. It may be chilly, but man, there's the sun out. Enjoy a little smoke. It's not too windy. It's,
No,
the almanac, the farmer's almanac, if you take some time, everybody who's listening, you take a couple minutes, read your farmer's almanac. You can pick it up in most places or go online.
I think
Usually
they
it
have it
tells you,
online now.
yeah, you can. Yeah, look at me saying, go pick up your farmer's almanac.
These are the old days.
These are the old days, but these are some of those things that if you don't know, or if you're trying to guess what the weathers are going to be like, with the predictions of seasons and crops, and even just us walking through the world, the farmer's almanac is a huge resource for many people. There's farmers every day, planters, agriculturists, everybody that relies on the farmer's almanac. And what all that is just a collection of data over the last like 200 years.
Yeah,
It tells how the weather was, sunrise, sunset, how the weather was it windy, was it chilly, did it snow early? And then you get to see some of those patterns and you see
yeah,
what's changed as well. You know,
yeah.
uh,
No, I
we,
agree with you.
we have gone from seeing very cold, very, very cold winters starting in October 20 years ago to not seeing any snowfall till late November now. We'll see historically, we're seeing a month later of that weather coming. You know what I mean? And,
Right.
and it shows the whole idea of global warming.
Yeah.
But what does that do for us in the cannabis world, at least? It tells us if our plants are going to have to come in early. Are we
Oh, well,
now?
I ran into that this year.
Yeah,
Speaking of growing, I did want to give a shout out to our sponsor, of
that's right.
course, Gabe at Metatron Homegrown. Gabe has been kind enough to sponsor the show for the last few months, and he's a great guy. He has been the guy who helped me get through my grow. He's got everything they need. You need down there. He's got two locations, one East Main Street in Meriden, and the other is 185 Boston Post Road in Orange. And he does classes every Saturday at Orange, and then every Sunday at Meriden. So you can go in there and learn different things. He does cloning. He did bubble hash one week. He does rosin press. So he does all kinds of different things over there. He's a great guy. Go check him out. And he just announced that on January the 10th, he's holding a swap meet.
There you go.
So I don't know if you got any extra grow equipment, but this is for growers who have extra grow equipment or things that they may want to lighting, tents, whatever they may want to get rid of. And it's like a swap meet type of deal. And he's got room for 8 vendors. And
You
he,
know, that's a great thing that he's doing because the amount of stuff that growers will accumulate is astronomical, and then things with technology kind of switch out. And I'll give an example. My first grow setup was very much pieced together with bobbits and who's its from all different areas of the electric world. But when I finally did have a chance to spend $100 to get a light, it was an HPS and a metal halide. I got one each of those for
right.
$100 from a store that had them on super clearance because now LED was starting to become the new things. So I have a bunch of old, um, like HPSs and metal highlights, and that's always really interesting. Somebody will see that on the shelf and go, "What's this?" I'm like, "Well, you can have the light fixture for free, but you might have to buy a light, and the light's gonna probably run you $100." So
That's true.
there's a lot of stuff that we can definitely pass by and pass down. I know that I've given away a couple tents, little 2x2s and 2x3s that I've had. So these swap meets and what Gabe is doing to help bring people together, it's just another step, another let's build the community portion
Yeah,
of it.
exactly, exactly. And his niche is the grower community. But I mean, if you go to any of his little events that he holds over there, he's got a nice little space indoors, so it's going to be indoors. You can fit about 8 vendors in there, and he supports the whole community. He's got always has a variety. He had a glass blower there last time, so who knows? We're going to have him on before the end of the year,
Yep.
probably on the 22nd with our good friend Rick Naya.
We
And
always do that yearly Rick Nyer show. I love it.
he's already booked, and and so yeah, we're gonna have him on. He'll explain the whole thing. But I think it's great. Like a new grower wants to save a little money, doesn't want to buy a brand new tent. He can go over there, maybe get a tent for a little bit cheaper, and also some advice on how to set it up, how to use it. So I think it's a great thing, like you said. It's a good way to bring community together at a time of the year, after the holidays where it's kind of dead, and people get ready for their growth for next year.
This
You
is the
know,
time to get ready
once
for
the
the
New
grow.
Year's hits, it's time,
Oh,
right?
I tell everybody, New Year comes, pop some seeds. You don't even need anything big. If you do want to purchase something and say something for Gabe, I know you can go in there and get yourself a small 2 foot tall by like 2 foot wide by 1.5 foot deep. And it's a nursery tent. So they're not huge tents. They're made just for like nursery racks to start seeds.
Yeah,
You don't need a full size tent to start seeds, but in a month and a half you'll need a full size tent. But some people set up those small nursery seed or clone tents. That's just a cube. If you have other uses, you can use it as a photo booth for like products or anything like that. If you're in
that's
that
true.
space,
That's true. You
it's
got that
just a
little
solid
lighting in the
white.
back.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
just a solid white inside with a nice little tent, and it doesn't take up much room. A lot of people use them for photo studios as a product light box or something along those lines. Um, We make do what we got to
Interesting
do.
idea. Interesting thought. I never thought of that.
We make do what we got to do in the plant world. You take and use that as your single plant can be in there and take pictures of it as a photo box or something. It's happen, making things happen with what you got and the community around you to help think about things. And Joe,
Yeah.
you preached it all summer and into the fall now. Use the community, speak with people. Other people want to talk. There's so many um people that don't get to have conversations or talk about their passions or take part in the communities that they belong to,
Yeah.
and it's tough.
The virtual world is great. And I can be honest with you, if you really want to learn how to grow, you can go on YouTube.
Hmm.
And there's some videos on there and they could show you that, but there's really nothing. The YouTube guy is not going to be there when you're in an emergency and your plants all of a sudden start withering and dying and you don't know why, or you got this green mold or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's always better to have that person to person a mentor or whatever, somebody who can help you get through the growing. Because look, let's be honest, man. Anybody who has ever grown knows there is no such thing as a perfect grow. And you go out and
Never.
you spend a lot of money, buying seeds and the soil and all this tents, the lights, all that. Or even if you grow outdoors, it's just as expensive, because you got to buy all these things for bug control and all that. And it's a whole different set of nutrients. So you spend all this money, and things are going to happen. Just like if you're growing tomatoes, just like if you're growing anything, things are going to happen. And you need somebody there who can help you get through it. And like I say, YouTube or a book isn't going to do that for you.
Yeah, man. Yeah, things happen, things work, but it's just nice to have somebody around. And
In a
Gabe usually.
community of other growers, you could share clones, dude. Right? I mean, I grew this year. I had clones from four different growers, four different geneticists.
There you go.
And it was nice to be able to support the community in that way. But
Yeah,
I wouldn't have known them if it weren't. I wouldn't have known any of those growers if it weren't for events that people had put on, like Gabe and like Duncan puts on these shows over there
that's
with the.
right.
So it's important, and the thing is, we are getting kind of the screws put to us by the state.
Oh
Those of
yeah.
us in the cannabis community, those of us who have been doing this and building this for a long time, we are getting the screws put to us. We know what happened over there in Hamden. Oh, I mean, things are closing in, and they're not really providing a great alternative for the consumers out there. So, I mean, it's if you consume cannabis in the state of Connecticut, you're between a rock and a hard place unless you want to learn to grow yourself.
Ev-
Realistically.
Everybody should at least do something and a grow.
Yeah.
If you can't, maybe you got somebody around you who can. Maybe, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of stipulations and a lot of stress, but it can be done, you know? And I know
It can
you've
be
done it,
done.
Joe.
I
Make
always used to think, because I had tried it before, Lou.
right.
I always used to think, oh, I got a brown thumb. I'm no good. Because every time I ever did it, it never came out great.
Oh, I remember you telling me that.
So this time, again, here you go. I thought I had a brown thumb. I just had to change my thinking to the point, well, maybe I don't have a brown thumb. Maybe I just need to learn how to do this properly and follow instructions.
Yeah.
And I can get a decent crop. And you saw my crop. It was, hey, for first time person seriously growing, I think I did okay.
Joe, you did
Not going to
absolutely
win any
amazing.
awards, but you smoke it, it gets you high. I've been making butter out of it, making some great edibles with it.
There you
So,
go. How could you think anything different? You literally are enjoying it. You got the fruits of your labor. You're doing what you got to. You feel happy with what you got going on, man. That's all we can really ask for.
no, it's true. It's true. And, it's funny. I'm looking at all the I got the harvest and I still got a bunch of it, here, and I'm like, I got so much freaking weed, and it's like it almost doesn't. I hate to say it. I don't want to say it doesn't mean anything to me anymore, but it's not as like special as it used to be. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Trying to find, you're like, oh, I got weed.
Yeah, I got weed. I don't need to go nowhere. I don't, you know what I mean? I got plenty of weed. I could do whatever I want with it. I could roll it up in blunts. I mean,
You can make your edibles, you can do your whole thing, and it keeps you somewhat independent, And that's a huge part of it is
well,
some type of independence,
exactly right. Exactly right. I don't want to have to depend on anyone else. Let's say it snows real bad or, whatever happens. And I can't get out of the house. I know at least I got weed.
You know what? And if somebody doesn't have weed and can't get out of their house and they're like, hey, we can feed Joe, come feed Joe and
Come bring me
get
food, I'll give you weed.
that's it.
That's how it works, bro. You let the universe take care of you. You learn how to, like barter with other people, and that's what community is all about. You share with other people. You share your harvest. If somebody needs weed, Lou, if you needed weed,
Right.
I give you a nice big pile of weed
There you go.
from my
Reach.
stash.
It's all love.
And I make some edibles, bring them out to the holiday party, whatever. I'm not. I'm just looking to share, and I'm not looking to make money off it.
Well,
It's
it's love. Realistically, that's what brings it in. And you know, we push forward, we do what we gotta do. Who do we got on today though, brother?
Oh, we got John Watkins. You remember John
We
Watkins,
love
don't you?
John Watkins.
Now,
You know?
I relate to John Watkins in a lot of ways because he was a person, and we'll talk to him about this when he comes on, who was heavily involved in the legalization of the medical marijuana program. He was, I think he was one of the directors of Normal.
Yes,
Helped
sir.
Eric and the rest of that crew write up the bill and push it to the just what we did. Same thing with like legalization. He did with the medical before us.
Yep.
He was kind of
And
like
continued on and was big part of it and
and
you know,
yes, and at one point, I guess he got to the same point where I got to, where it's like, you know what? I think my place in this industry is just to be like a commentator, a journalist, um, and because, and I want to ask him about this, the industry itself, and I think you can attest to this, whether it be the legal industry or the medical industry, is a freaking grind. It dealing with the state, dealing with a lot of the politics that go on. I know he was around when Curaleaf came in and bought up all the stuff and la 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 la. It is a grind, and the more you really got to really love it to stay in it and deal with the crap you got to deal with this state. And tell me if I'm wrong. I
no,
give anybody credit who has any kind of integrity. Let's put it that way. And I believe John and somebody like you and a few of the other people has any kind of integrity. It's very, very hard to deal with the crap that the state throws at you.
it's yeah, you know. So
No, and
yeah.
this is why I kind of moved away from advocacy and all that kind of stuff because um I just realized, I hate to say it, it's a losing battle.
We love the plant and we'll continue to celebrate the plant. That's the way I look at it, brother.
And it takes a certain amount of tenacity, and I can understand, from even my point of view, and I'm sure your point of view, it's like you get to a point where you don't want to fight anymore. You just don't want to go up against the system anymore, and you just want to do your thing. You just leave me alone, let me do my thing.
Sometimes you
And
just want to be able to feed your family.
right. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So,
They do not make it easy.
well,
And
we're still fighting battles, not even against anybody, but just against everything for this plant. Big shout out um, to the tribes that are still pushing forward, figuring out their space. They're still educating members. We have the honor of working with some groups, and they still have, it's a completely free program, and they still have a hard time getting people to participate, or getting people to be part of it or want to be part of it.
yeah, that's interesting you bring that up because you're right. The tribes are finally I guess there's some younger people now in amongst the chiefs and the committees that are in charge of this are really ready to bring cannabis into the fold. And my thought, the way I'm thinking is more for the residents and the tribe members to start learning how to grow for themselves. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Oh yeah.
I mean, to me, that's a no brainer. With all the land they have up there, and their heritage, being of the land, they should be all over home grow. Do you know what I mean? And I know they have a certain deal going on with the state that they're going to abide by their rules and regulations. But eventually, I would think once enough people within the tribe, because let's be real, if they were to get involved, let's say where they were able to sell it commercially, they would want anybody working there to be a tribe member. They're not going to want to hire from the outside.
Right.
So the thing is, the people there have to learn first how to grow this plant and how to do that. And I agree with you, Lou. I'm surprised at the lack of interest there because, we both visited there. That's a pretty large community. I don't know how many actual residents there are there,
Well,
but
every tribe is different, but they have. I guess I'm having this conversation because I saw recently Forbes put out an article, and this is not cannabis. This is actually gaming. But Forbes put out an article, and the Florida Seminole tribe, everybody who's born into it currently, is a multimillionaire. In their compact and the way that they have arranged it, because they own the Hard Rock casinos. Um, so now, anytime you're born, if you are a tribal member, registered tribal member, and you're born into the tribe, you get a trust that's given to each individual. And this is what the Forbes article went through.
wow.
And there's a trust put in your name, and you become a member of the trust, and you get paid out for the first 18 years of your life. That money stays in the trust. So not only from the day you're born, you start receiving a paycheck, but there's also the 18 years of interest that will build on top of it.
Wow. That's a great way to take care of your people. Now, did that money come from the casinos they got down there?
Yes.
I
So
believe it.
that's from the casinos. But we take this one step further. Why aren't churches or tabernacles or anything like that kind of looking at that same ideology?
Yeah.
Maybe not in the same way of um, taken care of, but there's no reason why a church couldn't put a mass health insurance policy together, and then members of the church would be able to pay into the health insurance very similarly to a work or
Yeah.
independent contractor, and then everybody that's a member of the church that pays their tithes or
Yeah.
does something, they now have some type of health insurance or life insurance.
That's
you know
true. That's
and
true.
it doesn't have to be a church, it can be a synagogue, it can be our own communities.
I was thinking that right
you
then.
know
My wheels start turning. But I agree with you. Hey, why don't we bring in our guest? right
Love
now
it.
because he is here, Mr. John Watkins,
Let's give him
and
the
he
introduction and hello he deserves, brother.
yes, Mr. John Watkins is the news director at Dab and Dad and the voice behind the featured blog John's Joints, a sharp, story driven writer with a knack for cutting through the noise. He is also the author of Poor Decisions. Watkins blends clarity, wit, and real world insight to deliver writing that sticks or pours. John, welcome to the show. How you doing, buddy?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on the show today.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We were chatting earlier about I kind of relate to you in a lot of ways. You know, out there fighting the fight, activists, working in the industry, pushing, 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 and then at one point you just say, "F it. I'm just going to do what I do best." And that's be a journalist, a pundit. This, you know, like I do the radio, you do the writing. It's like, and just commentate because this is just too much. I mean, a brief
It it's too
history.
much of a circus, is what it is.
I mean, I love cannabis and I love what you did. I mean, a brief history, John. You know, you were heavily involved in getting medical marijuana pushed through. You acted as a consultant for when we were working on the legalization. You've always been there. And then you actually were in the industry. You worked in it. You know, you
Uh,
were there at the beginning, like a trailblazer.
Three different dispensaries, actually.
Right. And I get you. So you saw
I
working.
saw the decline
You saw
of
the
something.
decline happen, right? That you put your heart and soul into for how many years? Now tell us, what was the moment where you just said, F it?
You know, actually, where I finally just kind of like was just like, you know what, I'm going to stick with it. Typing at the keys was for I about it was right before COVID. It was in 2019. I had gotten involved in a hemp farm up in Maine.
Okay.
Um, Kind of came in ground zero with everybody, and we actually had a really good crop. Um,
And this is
and
because the Farm Bill had made hemp legal and you had
yeah,
already ran
exactly.
through the dispensary and you saw the crap of that. So let's try something new.
Yep. So, I saw like, the rise and fall of those places like, your CBD store and things like that. But, I definitely saw like there was a need for it and a niche for it along the way. I also wanted to kind of get into textiles. But unfortunately, what ended up happening is we had a hot crop. I don't know. I'm sure you
I
guys know
know
what
what you
that
mean.
is. So,
Above
where,
point zero 0.03, right?
oh, we were way above point zero 0.03. The thing is, and being in the state of Maine, when like you're reporting crops and stuff up there, at least back in 2020 anyway, um, the state had a very heavy hand in all of those dealings. So once it was reported that we had a hot crop, like we couldn't touch it at all. We literally had to like sit and watch it like rot in a field.
Oh, you couldn't even
And
cut it down,
nah,
burn or nothing.
nope, they just said nope, you can't even touch it. And
Oh,
from
God,
what
that had to
neighbors
hurt.
from what neighbors had indicated to us that occasionally they did do drive-bys, local authorities did. And at that point, I was like, you know what? I've given too much to all of this, um, physically, financially, mentally. I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna go back to writing. I want to write and just write full time, whether, if I can, and just kind of give my view on things on how it looks because as far as when you're looking at regulations, it doesn't matter what state that you're looking at. It's such a tangled web
Oh, it is in all states. They all do it in different
of all of
ways.
them. And I'm of the opinion that, like if you're talking about legalization, I mean, why are we not treating it like beer? If you can get the zoning, you should be able to get the permit. There should be no big escrows or any of that. If you can I quite frankly, I think if you can afford a permit, I say that it really shouldn't matter where the cannabis comes from, as long as there are state regulated labs where the product
It
can
can
be
be
tested
tested, right?
for safety standards and for public health. You know, with if those things got put into place, well, yeah, you're going to see a big boom. Every smoke shop's going to finally crawl out of the crack and start selling their wares and stuff. But it's
It's
just gonna
happening anyway.
it happens anyway. It happens either way. I mean, we see it now with the microbrew guys. They're building up these small little empires, and now like they can't sell them fast enough. I mean, there are still a few survivors in it, but that's going to happen in any
I
industry.
also see quite a
Period.
few closing recently. Some of
Yeah,
these breweries because now it's oversaturated.
it's very saturated. There's a couple closing in Connecticut. There's one up for sale in Rhode Island. There's a bunch closing up in Massachusetts. I kind of follow all of the New England news. So, like, it's an oversaturated market. We saw this, again, people don't learn from history, unfortunately. And if you
No.
go back and take a look at when everything opened up after Prohibition, New York ended up saturated. And I mean
Yes.
entirely saturated with bars and
Yep.
brewers and distillers, and it got really big, and then
Crashed.
it
Yeah.
it crashed and it weeded itself out, and the remainders stayed. And that's just how life works. That's how any industry works. That's just business, plain and simple. But by the way like, for example, with the way our state is set up, being that you know we are a representative democracy.
Right. Right.
That's what
We're not a
Connecticut
ballot
is.
state. Right.
We're
We
not a
don't do
ballot state.
ballot.
We
Right.
don't do ballot initiative at all. So, we have, representatives that are supposed to be representing their district that vote and decide on our laws. So because the people don't have that option, we don't have the option to vote for things like, just let smoke shops sell pot, and that's not going to happen with, especially with Tong, with what he's got going on lately.
Oh wow. Yeah. We should
That's
talk about that. We will though.
that's completely crazy, and that's gonna, everything will be affected by that. But anyway, being that, that's our state of affairs with Connecticut, a little guy getting into this industry is just never going to happen. And when they talk about equity, they're still talking about equity of an elite fashion. All these guys
Yeah.
still
It's
need.
elite equity. I like
Yeah,
that.
it's an elite equity, is what it is, because it's backed by big money either way. There's no reason why any of these guys aren't treated, like a smoke shop. No,
Or a
everything.
liquor store in that for that matter.
Everything's got to have 25 miles of security. There's got to be stuff going into escrow. And then there's always the unkept promises by dispensaries with the towns in which they reside. They always guarantee money to the policeman's ball, the fire department. They never see it through. You know,
Nope.
they never do. And it's just a mess. There's no reason why, if you can't get a permit, that you can't just be involved in this. That's what
I
legal
agree with
is.
you. That's right. That's right.
That's
That's what
legal.
legal is.
This
If you
is
could
just,
like you should be able to sell it like tobacco, you should be able to sell it like
Joe, what this is prohibition with extra
liquor.
steps, is what this is.
Yeah, it's not legalization, it's regulation. It's just
It,
regulation. It's not we've taken it from the illegal market and put it into a regulated market. It's not legal.
it's legal
Overregulated.
if you have the bankroll, is what it
Hey,
comes down
hey
to.
guys, I got one of these licenses.
No,
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
no,
yeah, you know what I mean? And as we have the conversations, we can put in actual things, not just some of the speculations and things like that. It's absolutely horrible to do business in this space. The idea
you don't
of
have to, Uncle Lou. I hear you. I feel you. I worked at Arrow in Hartford before it became
no,
Curaleaf.
I
Com-
completely remember that, brother. And you know
and
it.
compassionate care before, it ended up turning into butter and all
There
that
is
stuff.
no compassion these days.
There
Absolutely
is no
horrible.
compassion these days. It is the almighty dollar, sir, and it's about bottom line. And even the there's one
Yeah, well,
dispensary left in the state that only caters to medical anymore.
and
That is
that was a financial decision on top of that, and that was a marketing thing. You know what I mean? So even in the
absolutely.
genuineness that it might seem like it's fairly disgenuine. Because at the same time, you know, uh, the overhead for a medical dispensary
Is ridiculous.
is almost $20,000 a month.
Just having
The
the
overhead,
pharmacist is
right?
ridiculous.
The overhead, and the new law didn't change anything.
And
The new
nine
law
times out of ten,
still,
when you get the pharmacist, it's a guy like you or me that's got to train them. Somebody that makes three times your salary, and that's
yeah, yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah.
It's like, bro, I know more than you, and I'm your trainer. Get out of here.
It's tough. It's tough. It's really tough. And then an adult use space, the overhead for an adult use drops down to almost $5,000 or $6,000 a month. You know what I mean? And then you start seeing what's paid to the actual employees. It's still not like they're making super wages. You know what I
No, of
mean?
course not.
For
There's
No.
for the for the price margins that are being done. And I call it breaking the glass ceiling or like opening the window and everybody's going to get mad. I don't care at this point. You know what I mean? Because I am going through it.
yeah,
I'm
and I
I
think part of
I'm
that is
closed. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Like my medical dispensary had to close and I've been closed due to these reasons. I'm the representative for the Department of Consumer Protection's advisory board on hybrid dispensaries. And I had to close mine voluntarily. You know what I mean? And then when the laws changed, they didn't do anything but help anybody who's got more than 3 dispensaries. We pay all
Sure.
this money to 100% be overregulated in a space that everybody's like, well, it can, but it can't. And then you go, wait a second, it's federally illegal. You make the rules up. Like, let's not be shy about it. They literally make the rules. You know what I mean? And then the disparity between the regulation on the medical side and the disparity on the regulation on the adult use side is tremendous. That we all know that we don't get any more medical dispensaries because the state has made it 100% an unrealistic business model.
And it comes down to the taxes because the state's not getting an extra pinch on it like they do on the
Yeah.
recreation model,
Yeah.
especially with a sliding scale. They want a guy like you to pump out as potent of a product as possible, so this way they can tax it for the largest dollar amount.
And then at that, even the way the testing goes is all skewed because if you really sit there and look at it when you're receiving inventory, you get to look at all this stuff and you're like, wait a second, this was done one way, this was done another way. And then when you're in the business, when you're growing, or even when you're in the legacy side of it, anybody who grows their own cannabis and takes it to go get tested starts to see what it is. The entire hemp side of the THCA, once everybody figured out how to get their testing in THCA and not THC, that changed the game.
Sure.
These are all just information pieces that the more we look into it, we find out. And it's, you know, and I enjoy reading your pieces. They're edgy, they're fun. Some are quick witted, some are just easy, simple. Just reminding everybody.
Yeah.
But
There's a variety of different topics.
yeah, and we enjoy it, and we love having you on the show. We'll definitely make sure to keep doing more and more. And this is the space. Let's not just complain about it because here are some of our solutions, and that's what Joe
Well,
and
that
I
I think
have
that's the
talked about.
biggest important aspect to take a look at here, Uncle Lou, is that, we're coming to the table. I mean, yes, sure, we voice our concerns about these things, but we actually have
Yeah,
viable solutions.
yeah,
We're not just sitting here complaining about it. I'm not just piggybacking your complaint. We are actually tabling
yeah.
viable ideas that can make this all better, like for
There's so
everybody.
much.
For there's so much, but they're so restrictive on the side of the state. They
Yeah,
seem like compelled to have this like centrally planned socialism. I don't know what the hell's going on around here anymore.
I
Yeah.
I agree with the fact that if you got the license, you should be able to put it any place that a zoning that a zoning will allow, because obviously you can move zoning rules, you can move zoning policies, and that doesn't regulate it by the industry. But if you can afford it, why not? Right? Because the biggest issue that many people faced was the zoning issue. So
It's
not
always
only
zoning. It's
not
always
yeah,
zoning.
not only do you now pay for the license to go through it, then you have to pay for a lawyer to make sure you can go into a place. So now we're limited to the 100 small townships that we can operate in out of the 400 that are in the state. So we're down to a quarter of usable space based upon the DEI, then disproportionately impacted areas. Then in that space, you're only allowed 50% of them because of moratoriums. So now that 25% is 50% of a 25%. Then when you get into it, they've limited this to towns to industrial use for cannabis under manufacturing and all specters of it. So it now limits that to 25% of the 50% of the 25%. There can be 6-month stints that there is actually no real estate available for a cannabis business when you can drive 2 minutes down the road and see readily available land, readily available um, storefronts. There's places that would 100% say, please come do business here because my strip mall is closing.
Every
You know?
plaza's got 5 empty stores and they're closing malls everywhere.
Yeah, there's
But
so
yeah,
many
Exactly.
places. But then we
but yeah,
get to the point, right, where, and I think we're almost at this point in Connecticut, where every dispensary is selling the same products.
that's always been
So,
our problem,
That
Joe.
is it.
yeah, so no
There's
matter
no
That's
how
always
growth.
been the
many you
problem.
open, and no, let's say you did ease up the licensing, as long as that monopoly, and you said a great thing, socialism there. People are crying about socialism right now. Socialism exists on the government and corporate levels with each other. And this is what you're saying. As long as we have this system in place where the growers, and it's so consolidated into these four growers or anybody who has money, then it's always going to be the same products in the stores no matter how many you license. And people are going to get freaking tired of that. And that's how craft beer ended up becoming so big,
Yep.
because they gave an alternative. And they had to fight for where they got to now. And here we were
Oh,
talking
without a doubt.
earlier. I watched that happen. I followed that. And they fought, and I saw the steps they took to get to where they're at. And now, you were saying earlier, now their industry is starting to crash a little bit, because they oversaturated the market. And there's
Well,
only so many tastes you can have.
so now let's talk beer for a second again, because this will correlate 100% with what's going on right now. And to piggyback off of what John said, your inputs have to come from a certain place that's overregulated. And as long as your inputs in the craft beer world come and are tested in state, they're tested where they originate from. So if you're buying hops from Kentucky or something like that, your hops would be tested in Kentucky for all its viability. Then we would get into Connecticut. You would send a sample out for the Department of Ag to make sure there's no extra contaminants. And then you're able to use that product to create your added product values. You know what I mean? So we're seeing that minor cannabinoids are being attacked all over the place. And there's people that do it really well in other states that have the weather, the space, the correct laws that will fit the standards in Connecticut. Let's just say CBG, CBN. We'll keep it on the hemp side for this conversation, you know? But why can't we import any of that in the manufacturing side of it? But we still have a hemp manufacturing license that basically they made useless. You know, as a cannabis manufacturer, technically we can't bring any of that stuff in without going through 1,000 channels and then getting denied.
which is ridiculous.
And
You
It's
now
know?
ridiculous.
they're even doing it on the federal level. So I mean, they've totally destroyed the hemp industry.
But
Totally.
what is cannabis? Cannabis is all the same plant.
All the same, we know
So
that.
now, if I wanted a product that has a 1 to 1 to 1 to 1 or something like that, um, big shout out to Trifecta up in Massachusetts, THC, CBN, CBG. You know what I mean? They do a great job in the ratios of it, and it knocks you out because it's a sleep aid product. You know, but it's done well. But it can't be transferred out of state now. Why?
Well,
This is a highly regulated, and this is just on the hemp side
yeah.
because of all of the new laws that are coming in, because of all the control that has to go in. I will then second this, and maybe you guys can jump in on this idea. China is not having any problems creating solar panels, but when Elon does business here, he's buying products here, and the idea that the raw product manufacturer is trying to make as much profit off the manufacturer as they can, then the manufacturer passes that number and then tries to make as much profit as they can off of the wholesaler, then it continues to trickle down where in places like China on the economical side, a raw supplier knows they have to supply across the board. They're looking for ways to make sure that the raw product is valuable enough that the manufacturer can then make the product. And this is socialism on an economic side, not on the geopolitical individual basis. But that's why China is able to produce solar panels at a third of the price or a quarter of the price than we can here in the States. That's why in the States we'll just
Yeah,
double
it's
the price of it.
overregulated. It's overregulated.
It's
over-
overregulated, and it's a state controlled economy, is
Yep,
what it is.
exactly.
Yeah.
This
Hey,
is
you know,
it's just simple. It's simple. It's the government planners deciding on the production and the distribution of an X product. I mean, that weighs heavy on Connecticut. I don't know about now, but I haven't looked at it in a while. But I know for a long time, Connecticut only had 4 liquor distributors for the
It's still
longest
the
time.
same.
yeah,
Medical,
DiCello, right?
and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, and even for the longest time with the medical program and moving into recreational, we only had 4 producers.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, that's like saying, y- that would be like limiting somebody to drinking Coors Light in Colorado. That's crazy talk.
Yeah.
That's
That's a great
crazy talk.
analogy. No, it's a great
That's a great
analogy.
analogy.
You
so
know?
That's simple
anybody
crazy
who's
talk.
old enough knows that Coors used to be a great freaking beer, like a delicacy to get on the East Coast.
Yeah.
But until they got bought up by a big company.
And then
My
that's where we got
grandfather
the
used to have it sent to him in the mail by a friend in Boulder.
look at that.
I used to drive to New York to get it because there was this one market over the border that would have it shipped in by refrigerated car from Colorado. That's how exclusive and like rare it was to get.
Yeah.
And it was delicious too. It obviously was worth the freaking drive. You know?
And Joe, you're hitting it right on the head. John, you're hitting it right on the head because the where the biggest issue is, it's not the plant and it's not necessarily the industry. It's the overall infrastructure of how they look to regulate almost anything in the state. And
Yeah.
it is tough, man. And they go overboard on anything that shows any type of luxury or the potential to make any money. They can't get themselves straight on gaming laws. They can't
No,
get
they really
themselves,
screwed that up.
they can't get themselves straight on anything. And every time a new law passes, I'll sit in there in these open meetings that people can watch, and you'll watch all these regulators' heads turn in circles and you'll have a 3-hour conversation about nothing. You know, I sat in my, and hey, it is what it is. I sat in the last meeting at the DCP, and they complained. Well, the room spent 2.5 hours talking about, and I don't want to say it's not important or anything, but for 2.5 hours on a regulatory oversight committee about, oh man, 17-year-olds and 16-year-olds are smoking pot.
Oh,
I started
jeez.
weed when I was 15 years old.
13.
You know what I mean? And I'm not advocating for anybody to do this. And hey, it's tough that a kid, a teenager, a kid, nobody should be able to get it from a legal avenue or a place that represents itself as a legal avenue. That is one thing we can all agree. We're not saying let's sell it to
Yes.
anybody, but the regulations are in place for where they're in place. The legacy market, because I hate calling it the black market, the legacy market, and the guys and the gals who take care of their communities, they do what they do in the space that they do what they do. Things get away, things come in. I started smoking weed when I was 16. You know what I mean? I bought a bag,
So
and I
they
tell this story all
wasted.
the time. 2.5 hours of regulatory time talking about somebody having the possibility of maybe getting it from a smoke shop. Not any actual evidence, not anything that was pertinent to any actual regulations for the dispensaries or for the retailers or the growers. It was just, well, what are we going to do about the smoke shops? I'm like, are you let the laws take care of the laws if you're not registering? And then the way they go after it, they say, no, well, we don't really have much wiggle room for it if they don't sell cigarettes or if they don't sell tobacco. I mean, if they don't sell lottery, because now they're not regulated by anybody. So what rules are they breaking? Because they're just going into this space. And if we look at it over and over, it's sale of cannabis by a business without a cannabis license.
Yeah.
And then it's so skewed between what a THCA product is. And so they hit this, and then what actually comes out of it? A couple
Nothing.
newspaper articles. You lock up a kid that was behind the counter not knowing what was up.
Yeah.
You know, talk about destroying more people's lives. Stores stay open. The New Haven spot that got busted twice, that they put like a $60 million value on whatever they had there, has just been robbed 4 times because you're telling people that, oh, look, this place has $6 million worth of weed in it every week.
I did see they are changing that to a three strikes law.
Right. So
So
they
they
closed the
won't be able to
business.
reopen, right? So now they're losing tax money and all that, et cetera, et cetera.
Well,
But
we'll go one step further. The bars. Yeah, I was around. Maybe you guys can help me. You're a little bit more experienced in the space. But 25 years ago, I would watch the same nightclubs and bars switch legal owners' names 5, 6 times and still be in the exact same place. With you instead of JR's bar, it was RJ's bar.
yeah, they do that. Zaza's tried that.
You know,
Yeah, they
so
do. You know what I wanted to bring up though, real quick, John. I wanted to bring the, especially with you on the air. The Connecticut is about to make history by literally wiping out the Freedom of Information Act here in Connecticut. Did you see that?
I did see that. It kind of runs parallel with some of the things that we were talking about.
Yeah.
uh-huh.
We're to update any of your listeners, Attorney General Tong is trying to push through some sort of legislative bill where it pretty much puts anything has to do legislative wise under a veil of secrecy,
Yes.
which
It's first of a kind in the nation.
first ever. But if it was going to happen anywhere, it would definitely be Connecticut, just due
I would have
to,
thought California, but yeah, go ahead.
well, just by the way we're set up with our, like we were talking about earlier with our just how our legislation works, being not a ballot initiative driven state, where
Yeah.
everything is running through our representatives. Now, it's easy to put, well, that was legislative information being shared between two people. I mean, these guys can virtually cover up anything that they might be talking about. And being that it goes against the Freedom of Information Act, being that it's going against the federal grade, I really don't know who would be able to enforce that, or go against it in any way. Like the federal government's not going to throw any money against that. You know what I mean? They're not
No.
going to allocate resources to. I mean, believe me, man, if the Fed wants to come in and know something, they're going to figure it out, even if it's at the Capitol.
Yeah.
If they're going to go after somebody and want to know something, they're going to find out if they don't already know or already anticipate knowing.
So
That's
this
just
is
simply,
not right. This is not, I mean, I was thinking it had something to do with this federal investigation, but this is more about the public not knowing, realistically, right?
yes, it's shutting
It's
off all the information in regards to dialogue between
journalists, activists, anybody who
all of
might.
it. It
Yeah,
shuts it all down if it's any sort of legislative business, and that
that's
could virtually be anything.
we're reaching
And
dangerous,
and
dangerous.
that pushes us further into that representative democracy that we were talking about earlier, and that
Yeah.
also slides us even further into that centrally planned socialism.
Oh,
It,
I'm getting the word that we got to go, and that's a good way to stop. But John, tell us, Dab and Dad, how we can reach you, how we can follow you on social media, and get your great insights.
you can follow us directly at dabin-dad.com, or check out us on Facebook and Instagram. I link all of the articles on there, especially the John's Joint stuff.
Okay, and John's Joints
It's
is
all out
actually
there.
you can follow that too. So yeah, it's great. You guys got to check out John Watkins. He's got a ton of experience, a ton of knowledge, and a great edge, great insight on the industry. Love you, John. We're gonna have you on again. We can continue this conversation. Always a pleasure. Uncle Lou, thank you.
Stay happy, have a night, my friends.
All right, you can like, share, and subscribe at Greenhaven Media, at Cannabis Corner, or at Joe the Weed Guy. Thank you to Metatron Homegrown for sponsoring us, and we'll see you next week. Love you, John.
Have a blessed day.
Love
Have a blessed day.
everybody.